I'm joined now by Beto O'Rourke. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So, Beto, right now we are watching as the Texas legislature has been called into session by Greg Abbott to push forward this further gerrymander that was ordered by Donald Trump. And I want to get into that in just a moment. But first, we obviously have some major breaking news handed down by the Wall Street Journal that shows that Donald Trump was informed back in May that by his own Department of Justice that he was named in the Epstein file. So first and foremost, can I have your reaction to the fact that for months we've been engaged in this, I guess, blatant cover up by administration officials and law enforcement officials to train our attention on Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, all while knowing that Trump himself was in the files that he's trying to hide?
I think this is what everyone, and I don't mean every Democrat, but every American long suspected that Trump, who is a longtime friend of Jeffrey Epstein, Trump, who we learned from the Wall Street Journal as well just a few days ago, apparently sent Epstein a body birthday letter where he alludes to a secret that they have together. Something, of course, that Trump denies and in usual fashion is trying to sue and intimidate and bully the Wall Street Journal to get them to retract this. But now we've learned why all this is going on. It's because he is named in the Epstein files that he and his administration refused to release to the American people. And you've seen this polling as well as I have, Brian. I mean, it's not Democrats, it's 90% of America. 90%, like what does 90% of America even agree on anymore? 90% of America wants to see the full files released. That is what Trump is up against right now. And let's see what happens. You saw that Speaker Mike Johnson, sent everybody back home until September from the House of Representatives, not able to do any work for anybody to make anyone's life better because they're afraid of taking votes on this. Let's see if this doesn't go away over the course of the next month and a half, and in fact, just builds and grows as drip by drip, new facts, new information come out. And of all the places for us to find this, the Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch and his family, which arguably have helped to prop up Donald Trump in the past. This isn't from the New York Times.
Right.
This isn't Brian Tyler Cohen breaking news, although I wish you had broken it first. This is the Wall Street Journal. This is one of the most reputable papers of record still left in the country. So pretty damning stuff.
Can I have your reaction to the fact that so many of the people Trump surrounded himself with in this administration, I'm talking about Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, these people who had staked their reputations on this idea that they have to get into the government because the government as it existed was filled with people who were just looking to protect the deep state, right? Protect people who are covered by this second tier of justice where they can commit heinous crimes and nothing ever happens to them. And then they get into these positions where they can substantiate their own claims. And when they find out that their own boss, the president of the United States, pretty newsworthy person to be in those files, when they find out that he's named in those files, they don't tell a soul. And it's been a couple of months now. And so what do you say to those people out there who trust folks like Dan Bongino, who trust folks like Kash Patel, when they said that they would go in and expose these deep state actors, and instead it seems like they've just turned into exactly what they've railed against?
I don't know these guys well, and I haven't really followed them in the past. I know them more by reputation than anything. But when I see them on TV in the midst of this exploding scandal, they look really uncomfortable. And the thing that Trump and Trump world have always tried to master is this confidence game of whatever lie they're peddling, whatever conspiracy theory they want us to follow them into. They always speak with confidence, and it's the tone of their voice, it's their body language, it's the assertiveness and certainty with which they pronounce every fucking word in
Yeah.
every sentence. They don't look like that anymore. There's something completely changed in their body language, in the tone and tenor of their speech. This con that they have been running for so long, that they have been perpetuating, thinking that it would never, ever come back and get them, has finally begun to bite them on the ass. And they just don't know what to do with it, especially as drip by drip, we learn that Trump is more and more implicated with Epstein. And you're right, it's this perverse irony that these are the very people who inflated this conspiracy scandal to begin with, used it in part to purchase the power that they now wield over this country. And wouldn't it be some pretty fitting cosmic poetic justice for that very same con to spell the end of their term? But I want to warn everybody about this, and I know you don't need this warning, but maybe some of us out there do. There are some who would take some satisfaction in this, or even assume that this might spell the end of Trump's hold on his base or his political power going into 2026. This guy is cornered. He understands that this stuff is coming out, hence him lashing out at President Obama, accusing him of treason, the punishment of for which is the death penalty,
Yeah.
talking about taking his political enemies into jail and unleashing the full force and weight of federal law enforcement upon them. This is just the beginning. This is just the first, week after this thing really starts to break loose. Imagine as the furor and the anger from his own base grows and the lengths to which he will go to try to distract people or to try to hold on to power that he would otherwise lose. That also helps to explain why Donald Trump ordered the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, and the Republican majority in the state house to literally, I mean, he said this out loud, find me 5 Republican seats. Not, I think these seats were drawn unconstitutionally. I think that they are gerrymandered. I think that folks aren't getting the representation they need. He's just being completely clear, saying the quiet part out loud. I'm going to lose this fucking election. I will have a check on my power in the House of Representatives if I cannot maintain the slim majority. And the only way we can get it done is Texas. So get me those 5 seats. And as you pointed out in your opening, that process in Texas just began this week. On Monday, the House gaveling in for a special session where the primary goal is to find Trump these 5 seats.
Okay, so let's dig into that point right now. What is the mood on the ground, both from the Democrats and Republicans? Because remember, there is still the risk that by stretching themselves so thin to try and get so many seats, to try and grab these 5 extra seats that Trump issues his clarion call for, that now they're in much more competitive districts than they were before. And if we have a wave year like 2026 right now looks like it's promising to be, then all of a sudden, these current Texas legislators, members of Congress, may very well be out of a job.
Man, you nailed it. When you ask about the mood, you see even in the comments in the press from Republican members of Congress from Texas, they're very sheepish. They're not really even willing to answer questions. They don't want to talk about redistricting and gerrymandering and members of Congress choosing their own voters. Not just because people find gerrymandering distasteful, but you just nailed it. It's because they realize they're going to sacrifice potentially their own seats in Congress in order to pick up these other 5 seats. What do
Yeah.
I mean by that? When they gerrymander, if they're successful in doing this, in order to make these Democrat-led seats more competitive for Republicans, they're going to have to move Republican voters out of so-called safe Republican districts into these Democrat-represented districts. That's going to jeopardize their hold on power and what they were going to reliably be reelected into. And we might also be able to pick up these districts that are gerrymandered because, as we saw in Trump's first midterm in 2018, this guy is deeply unpopular once America wakes up to what he's doing. On immigration, arguably his most successful policy issue, he is polling at 35%. The big, beautiful bill, his handling of the economy, also in the tank. On Jeffrey Epstein, as we just talked about earlier, I mean, it
Yeah.
is a complete washout. And so these Republicans have to run on the MAGA movement, on Donald Trump. So try as they might in gerrymandering. And look, we shouldn't take it lightly. It's going to make our odds a little bit tougher on our side. They may also be setting themselves up for an epic failure where it's not 5 seats they pick up, potentially, 8 or 9 or 10 seats that they lose if it is a total blowout. But beyond that, beyond Democrats feeling electric right now and energized, and yes, pissed off and angry, but channeling that anger into action and registering voters and recruiting candidates that are going to be competitive in these districts. There are more cards that we can play. You mentioned Gavin Newsom earlier. governor of California, has threatened to redistrict to Democrats' advantage in that state. I think he should do it. I don't think he should wait for Texas to go first. I think we should be bold. I think we should be on the offense. And then we also have the option of Texas Democrats in the state legislature leaving the state to break quorum, to deny the Republican colleagues the ability to move forward on these maps. It's a tough thing to ask them to do. They're leaving their families, their careers. They face arrest from state troopers in Texas. And as we can imagine in Donald Trump's America, you can see the FBI or DHS agents or the federal bureaucracy doing everything they can to hunt them down. But if they do this, I think it's going to be inspiring to the country. You were an absolute hero when they tried to do this in 2021 to stop Greg Abbott from rewriting our election laws to disenfranchise more Texans. They lasted for a pretty long time that time. I think this time, given the stakes, we might very well lose the Republic if we don't gain the House of Representatives. I think everyone's going to have their back in this. So, look, it's a tough situation, but I feel more optimistic given the fight that I'm seeing from Democrats across the board in Texas and in California for that matter.
And let's finish off with this. And you had alluded to this a little bit with California and going on the offense there. There are other states that could potentially be weapons in a redistricting fight, and that is Illinois, that's New York, Maryland. And so what would you suggest for these governors? Because so often it feels like, and I know that we've spoken about this too, so often feels like Democrats, if we're going to do anything, which is by no means a sure thing, at most, it'll be, okay, some tepid response to a major assault by Republicans. So Republicans gerrymander the shit out of Ohio, North Carolina, Texas, Florida this cycle. And we're like, okay, well, maybe we can squeeze a few seats out of California. But we do have other weapons. And so would you recommend that all of these governors basically say, okay, you know what? Like, here's what's going to happen. If there's any more gerrymandering moving forward, in advance of that happening, let's just go ahead and use every weapon we have at our disposal and let them know that if they want to engage in this cycle, this is what it's going to look like.
Absolutely. I would liken it to a basketball game where the refs have stopped making calls. And so the other side's just punching us in the face, kicking us in the nuts, doing everything they want to do without any consequence or accountability at all. And Democrats have been like, hey, where are the refs? This isn't right. The rules say that you can't do this. Why isn't somebody enforcing the rules? Or they're looking at the crowd who's watching the game and trying to garner their sympathy. Democrats need to punch back, and Democrats don't need to wait for the next punch. I would punch first if I were in one of those positions of power to do so right now, because we know where this is going. Trump is ruthless. He will use violence if he has to, which he tried to incite in 2021 on January 6th. He will tear up the Constitution right in front of our faces. He will break the law. He's doing all this stuff right now in broad daylight. And if we're going to be bound by the rule book or coloring within the lines or just, left to complain and whine and bitch and moan, what is that going to look like down the road after we're no longer a democracy, after we no longer have a constitution, when Trump is 2 years into his third term in office? There will be some explaining to do. So I think our message has to be to those Democratic governors: we love you. We want you to use every lever at your disposal to make sure that not only that we fight back, let's stop reacting and responding, but let's take the offense and fight forward.
That was as perfect a distillation of the current environment we live in as I've ever heard. And look, my message for anybody listening right now, especially elected officials, is that exact degree of fight that you just showed is what I hope that we can hear from every single Democratic elected official in the entire country right now. So, Beto, as always, I appreciate the work you're doing in Texas. I would mention right now for anybody watching, Beto mentioned we still have work to do in terms of registering voters. The work you do with Powered by People is second to none. So I'm going to put a link on this screen and also in the post description. If you're listening on the podcast, go to poweredxpeople.org. That is the best organization in Texas to register voters, among a raft of other excellent organizations as well. But please support Beto's work, support all of the great volunteers that are associated with Powered by People, and let's help continue to register voters in a state that is known to be the single most difficult state to register voters in the entire country. So again, I'll put that link on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Beto, as always, I appreciate the time.
Grateful to you, Brian. Thank you.